Grandma. I'm back again for Grandma Storytime. Do you remember the name of the book we're reading? It's called The Adventures of the Wishing Chair. Now, I had a look inside. There's 26 chapters, and today we're going to read chapter 7. Put on your glasses, Grandma. Let's have a look. Where's chapter 7? Here it is. Chapter 7, The Runaway Chair. Maybe it should be the flyaway chair. Let's find out. One morning, when the two children went down to their playroom to have a game with Chinky the pixie, they found him fast asleep. "Wake up!" cried Peter, rolling him over. But Chinky didn't wake up. He was breathing very deeply, and he had quite nice red cheeks. But he simply would not wake up. "What's the matter with him?" asked Molly, puzzled. "Oh, he's just pretending," said Peter. "I'll get a wet sponge. He'll soon wake up." And Peter squeezed some water onto him. He still didn't wake up. "There must be a spell on him or something," said Molly, rather frightened. "What shall we do, Peter? If only we knew where to get help. But we mustn't tell anyone about Chinky. He would be so cross if he woke up. And we don't know how to find any fairies, or we could ask them for help." Suddenly, the wishing chair gave a creak, and Molly looked around. "It's growing its wings," she cried. "Don't let it fly away, Peter. We don't want an adventure without Chinky." Peter ran to the chair, but it dodged him and flew straight out of the door, its wings flapping swiftly. Peter stared at it in dismay. It left without them. "Oh, Peter," said Molly, "isn't this dreadful? Here's Chinky under a spell or something, and now the chair's run away. What an unlucky day." "Well, it's gone," said Peter gloomily. "Now what are we going to do about Chinky, Molly?" Just then there came the sound of a cautious tiptoe. Peter turned just in time to see an ugly goblin slipping out of the door. "I put him under the sleepy spell," shouted the goblin. "I meant to steal the chair before he woke up, but you came. Now I'm going to find that chair. If you don't find the way to wake up that pixie before 12 o'clock tonight, he will vanish together. Ho, ho, ho!" "Horrid thing," said Molly, as the goblin disappeared in the garden. "I suppose he will go after our chair, and he will have it for himself. And he's left Chinky in a magic sleep, and we don't know how to wake him. Oh, if only we knew how to find a fairy to help us." "I'll go and call for one in the garden," said Peter. So he went out and called softly here and there, "Fairies, if you're there, can you come and help? Fairies." But he had no answer at all, and he went sadly back to the playroom where Molly sat by the sleeping pixie. "No good," said Peter. "I didn't see a single fairy. I really don't know what we're going to do. If only we had the chair, we could go off in it and find a fairy somewhere to help us," said Molly. "But even that's gone and left us. Run away on the very day we need its help." They went back to the house for dinner and tea, and Mother exclaimed at their long faces. They very nearly told her about Chinky, but they didn't like to, for they had solemnly promised the pixie never to mention his name to the grown-ups. When it was their bedtime, Chinky was still asleep. "Fancy, He hasn't eaten all day, said Molly. Oh, Peter, do you really think he'll disappear at midnight if we can't wake him up? We must wake him, said Peter. So he got 2 drums and 2 trumpets, and he and Molly made as much noise as they ever could until their mother went down to the garden to stop them. But Chinky didn't even stir in his sleep. Then they poured cold water down his neck, but that only made him wet and didn't make him even flicker as much as an eyelash. Then they found a hen's feather and set it alight and let it smoulder just under the pixie's nose. But the strong smell still did not make him turn away. He slept on peacefully. A bell rang in the distance. Oh dear, that's our bedtime bell, said Molly in dismay. Peter, I'm coming back down to the playroom tonight somehow. There surely must be something we can do. We've tried everything, said Peter, looking so miserable. They went off to bed, first covering up Chinky warmly. In an hour's time, they were awake and back again, in their dressing gowns. They had slipped out of bed, run out of the garden door, and gone to the playroom without being seen. Chinky was still fast asleep. Molly looked at the clock. 8:30, she said. Oh dear. They tried to think of more ways to wake up the sleeping pixie, and Molly squeezed a sponge over his head with icy cold water and then with hot water, but neither of them had any effect at all. The hands of the clock stole round and round. Soon it will be midnight. And at last, it was only 10 minutes to midnight. The children were quite in despair. Suddenly, there came a curious sound of knocking at the door. It sounded more like kicking. Peter ran to it. Outside was their wishing chair, wet through, for it was raining. It had found the door shut and had kicked the door with one of its front legs. Sitting in it was a jolly-faced gnome with a silvery beard and an enormous nose, 2 pairs of spectacles, and a large umbrella to keep off the rain. Who are you? Said Peter in surprise. Oh, don't bother him with questions, said Molly. He's a fairy of some sort. Perhaps he's come to make Chinky better. Yes, said the gnome, putting on a 3rd pair of spectacles. This chair knew where I lived and flew 133 miles to fetch me. I am only just in time. There are only 7 minutes till midnight, said Molly. Do be quick. The little gnome doctor rolled up his sleeves, took a towel and a piece of soap from the air, and with them he washed Chinky's face very carefully, and then he brushed the sleeping pixie's eyes with a peacock feather that he also took most conveniently from the air and smeared them with a peculiar smelling yellow ointment. Do hurry, said Molly. It's almost midnight. The clock's going to strike. It's 1 minute fast, said the doctor. He took a black ball from the air and opened it and put a blue powder inside it. Then he struck a match and put it to the black ball. All at once there was a loud explosion. The playroom rocked and shook. Smoke covered the room. It had a very pleasant smell. When it cleared, the 2 children saw, to their delight, that Chinky was sitting up, looking a bit astonished. Who made that horrible noise? He said crossly. Hello, Doctor. What are you doing here? Just going. Goodbye, grinned the little gnome. See you someday. He jumped into the wishing chair, which at once flew off with him again. Chinky ran his finger around his collar and frowned. Who's been wetting me? Oh, Chinky, please don't be cross. We've been quite anxious about you. A goblin put you under a sleepy spell, and the clever wishing chair went to fetch that gnome doctor you saw. Only just in time, too. So that's it, said Chinky. No wonder I feel so hungry. I've been asleep all day. Can you find me anything to eat? There are some buns and apples in the cupboard, said Peter, delighted to see Chinky awake again. We'll have a fine feast. And so they did. And they didn't go back to bed till the rooster woke them up. No wonder they slept late the next morning. Chinky didn't, though. He was up bright and early. He'd had quite enough of sleeping. And that's the end of chapter 7. I want more, don't you? Come back and we'll do chapter 8. Bye-bye.